So before I actually go into the demo of showing you guys how to actually make a taper in your square stock of copper, I'm going to kind of show you an illustration so it makes hopefully a little more sense. So most of you are at this point right now, you might have started to flare out your spoon and start to shape it. You've pinched where your transition point is, and you have a stock that's square. And now I know you all are doing something different on your handle, but most of you are going to use some sort of taper somewhere at some point. So depending on where that is, this is when you would start this process. So if I want to start my taper and keep it this beefy at the beginning of the handle, I would begin to hammer a little bit below there, and I would hammer completely down this way. I would flip it 180 degrees, completely down this way, 90 degrees. You guys are probably catching on to the pattern, how you kind of flip everything 180, 180, 180 until you get all the way around. The best thing to use for this is your straight peen hammer in this direction. So that's why I have the lines like that. If it becomes off square, you have to square it back using a flat hammer all the way down the surface of it. So try to be careful with where you're putting your hammer. Try to really be directly perpendicular to the metal. So if I have my hammer and I'm hammering, make sure you're exactly perpendicular, or it will start to go like this, and you will have to hammer it the way that you square it. Okay? So once you do that all the way down, and it's starting to get work hardened, you then, to get those little kinks out, it looks like a French fry, like a crinkled French fry, it's kind of hard to work with. I always go all the way down, flip it, do my rotation, and then it becomes flat again. And you will see it start to taper and get a little smaller. Now, to make it taper, instead of starting up here, I would anneal it, and then I would remove my hammer, beginning of where I'm going to hammer down a little bit, and I would go from there, and I would do the same process. Everybody following me? And then I would anneal, and I would start a little bit further down, and I would begin. So what's happening is this was only hammered once. This has been hammered twice. This area has been hammered 3 times. So it's stretching and it's doubling itself each time. If I did it 3 times, my hammer, this would probably be 1.5 inches longer and smaller. So depending on how long and thin you want it to get, that is how much you would know to space out your hammers after each annealing, and then how tapered it needs to be. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. The very, very end of the process is rounding it again. So you're going backwards, and I'll explain that at a later date.